Bonnie, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Bonnie Grabenhofer. Bonnie Grabenhofer, please come to the front of the ballroom. Bonnie Grabenhofer. If anybody knows Bonnie, grab her. Haha, get it? Grab Bonnie Grabenhofer. Somebody get Bonnie Grabenhofer. I need her up in the front right away, quick. She may be selling pins at the Now Pack table, but I need her now. Hello, Bonnie. You were doing the work of the Yeah, thank you. Yeah, holy shit. Okay. Bonnie Grabenhofer, where is my vice president? Where is my vice president? Bonnie, where is she? All right, somebody go to the pack table. You want to go to the pack table and see if you can find Bonnie? Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's just crazy. I'm gonna exciting news about intersectional. Yeah, I can't believe so. Yeah, we got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, come on up. You know, we've got a little V-shaped table frame. I'm going to try to keep it away. We're running a little late.
Don't worry about it.
You don't have a podium. Is that okay?
That's fine. I just have visuals, so you're going to move.
All right. All right, let's see.
Hi. Yes.
Visuals for Catherine Dent.
Yes, I have them.
Okay. All right, good.
You are doing a fantastic
You
job.
are so sweet. Thank you.
It's true. You're calm. You're friendly.
I am so crazed. I'm so good to see you. Oh, sweetie. Oh my God.
How
Great.
are you?
Oh, I'm like, you know, we're changing the structure of this organization.
I'm really, really proud of you.
We just got intersectional into the statement.
I am excited. Like, this is absolutely amazing. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
all
you
of
so
your
much.
leadership and all of your team, y'all are like the bomb.
They're great. They're doing great. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I have got to go chill. Because
Yeah.
seriously, I'm getting stressed.
No, take your time.
I'm going to introduce Bonnie Grabenhofer is our vice president. She's going to sit up here with you for your plenary. I'm going to introduce you and Catherine very quickly. But like I said, this is your platform. Oh, and Randy couldn't come. Randy Weingart. So I. Yeah, so I think that someone from her office may be here to read her statement, just to read her remarks, but maybe not. I didn't hear a final word on that. I said she was welcome.
Yeah,
And then I
make it
didn't.
work.
Yes, we'll make it work because I know, because you're so good.
It's going to be all right.
Yes, right. Now, I think in kindness to Catherine Dent,
Yes.
you should go second.
Okay. Together. We can do it together, but okay, that's fine.
Yeah, good. Okay. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. This is great.
You.
Yeah,
Thank you,
this is
thank
cool.
you.
Okay,
And
sweetie.
take care of you.
Exactly. I got to do some self-care.
Yeah, please
okay,
do that.
Thank you. All right. Now, why? As soon as we get Bonnie up here, because I have to. She's going to preside. No, she needs to preside over our amazing plenary. Yes. Thanks. Yes.
You want to keep these tables up here? You absolutely want that?
Well, you know, the thing is, it takes the guys about 10 minutes to break it
no
down.
worries.
So what I thought we would do is let's clear it off and make it look pretty. And yeah, so yeah.
Administrative question. Tomorrow, is there any provision made for late checkout on a global basis? Oh, okay. Between 12 and 12:30 would be perfect for doing that.
Exactly. Okay, it is now 4:15 or close to it, and we are going to come back to order. All right, everybody. I am so pleased and so excited to open this next plenary session. We have two women who have been working to advance women's rights, each in very different ways, each in very different areas of endeavor, and both are really, really amazing. Could Monica and Catherine please come up on the stage and join me right here? All right. No. I'm so excited to introduce Catherine Dent. Those of you who have watched The Shield or The Mentalist will recognize her. Was Officer Danny Sofer. And what was your character on The Mentalist? What was my character? Yes, right. Catherine has been working with the Gina Davis Institute to advance women in directing and in producing in film, and she's been doing remarkable things. She's going to tell you all about it. Monica Simpson, the executive director of the Sister Song Women of Color Collective for Reproductive Rights and Justice. And she is going to talk to us about what she is doing and what Now chapters can do to work with Sister Song and help. Bonnie Grabenhofer is the membership vice president of Now. She is also the PAC director of Now. She wears both hats. She's been doing an amazing job on our Now for Hillary campaign. Bonnie is going to moderate this next panel for us, and now I'm going to hand it over to Bonnie. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please come and have a seat. And oh, that's good. Okay, Monica, we're really pleased to have you here.
And Catherine, we're going to switch places now. I'm now Catherine, and she's now Monica. No, I'm just kidding. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Yes, here we go. I know that you all just got out of a really big session with doing some really big things. So I heard about this new phrase, intersectionality, this new term being instituted into you all's work. I just want to give you a round of applause for that, and maybe you should give yourselves a round of applause for that too. That's amazing, amazing, amazing work. So I'm just going to kind of help get our energy shifted in the room as we kind of focus back to this conversation that we're about to end on today. Because I feel like Catherine and I are both really excited, right, to talk about how important it is for us to make sure that we see ourselves reflected in the work that we do, and that because of that, grassroots organizing, because of that, our work can move forward in really powerful ways. And so we're going to talk about how that looks from both of our angles. But do you mind repeating after me, everybody, right quick? Can y'all do that? I need to hear y'all a little bit better than that now. Okay, y'all understand I'm a black woman from the South. You can't just look at me. You have to talk with me and be with me, all right? Okay, y'all, you do notice I'm a black woman. You may okay, all right, good. So just repeat after me. We must fight for freedom.
We must fight for freedom.
We must fight for justice.
We must fight for justice.
It will take all of us.
It will take all of us
to get to the other side.
to get to the other side.
Let's try that one more time with even more enthusiasm. We must fight for freedom.
We must fight for freedom.
We must fight for justice.
We must fight for justice.
It will take all of us
It will take all of us
to get to the other side.
to get to the other side.
Awesome. Y'all put your round of applause for yourselves. That was great. You want to go ahead and start with your presentation? Are we good with slides? Okay. I can go. Awesome. So this makes my second year here at Now with you all on the stage, which is very, very exciting. And I was with you all last year in Albuquerque, and it feels really good to be with you here in New Orleans. And so, like Terry was saying in the introduction, I'm the executive director of Sister Song, and we're the National Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective. And how many folks have heard of the term reproductive justice? Oh, there we go. I love it when hands go up in the room, right? Because reproductive justice, just in case you all don't know, right? It's not a term. It's not a movement that's interchangeable, right, with reproductive health and reproductive rights, right? Reproductive justice is a movement and a framework all of its own. So I really try to make sure that folks understand that when walking away from anything that I have an opportunity to speak at, right? And so the reproductive justice movement is celebrating 20 years this year, right? So in 1994, black women came together to say, hey, reproductive health and rights work, we can't really do that in our communities if we're not also talking about all of the other issues that we are dealing with in our communities, our health or health disparities, or the criminalization and policing that's happening in our communities, or the health and environmental issues that we're dealing with in our communities. We can't just talk about our right to have an abortion or access to contraception if we cannot also talk about the fact that a lot of us are not able to access that because resources do not look the same across all communities, right? Access doesn't look the same across all communities. And so in 94, when the reproductive justice term was created, that's what these women were doing as they were coming together, saying that we want to look at reproductive health and rights in conjunction with, alongside, mixed in with all the other social justice issues that we talk about. So I want to bring something into the room that's really real and what's happening right now in real time. So all of us, I'm sure, in this room have heard about the tragedy in Charleston, South Carolina, yes? And so, yes, we know that this is about race, although, like we were talking about earlier, people like Jeb Bush and other people saying that it's not about race. We know it's about race, right? We know that this is an act of not just only a hate crime, right? This was targeted, and it was something that this young man, I refuse to say his name. I refuse to say his name. It's something that he thought long and hard about when he sat in that church with those folks for over an hour, assessing what he was about to do. But there is a piece of this story, as I talk about the work of reproductive justice, that I think is really important to lift to the front as well. And so how many of you all know that there was a young child in that church, he was 5 years old, that played dead so that they could live? We live in a world not only where women are still, we have so many barriers to being able to live a life free from reproductive oppression, right? We still live in a world where there are many, laws, bills, barriers put in place for us to be able to live out our reproductive lives. We know that. But we're also living in a world, right, where our children are being incredibly impacted, right, by these larger systems of racism that are playing out in our communities every single day. So we can no longer just talk about the right to an abortion. We can no longer just talk about the right to access. We have to talk about the right to parent our children in healthy and safe environments. And that is what reproductive justice looks at. That is why reproductive justice was introduced and why it's a movement that's growing by leaps and bounds, because it pushed us beyond a choice, right? Because the thing about choice is that it is a privilege to have a choice. And everyone is not privileged to have a choice. And so, since 1997, Sister Song has been working to collectively build the power of women of color across this country to be able to live self-determined lives, to determine for themselves the fate of their bodies, of their communities, of their families. And so, because of that work, we've also had to have a lot of energy put into pushing back some really crazy pieces of legislation. We're still continuing to beat back HIDE, which makes it impossible for federal funds to be used for low-income women to be able to get access to funding to fund an abortion if they so need it, right? But we also we've had to fight billboard campaigns from anti-choice groups that say the most dangerous place for an African-American child is in the mother's womb, or the current one that we are currently beating back right now in Atlanta and all across the country, that's putting black women and black men against each other, saying that, really playing on the heartstrings and really trying to strategically place these billboards and messaging within our communities, right? With, again, billboards plastered with beautiful black babies' faces on them. We also have cases like Purvi Patel. We also have cases like Kenlesia Jones in Albany, Georgia, who also is very similar to Purvi Patel's case. But again, in this particular case, they're saying, okay, we're not going to charge you for feticide, even though, you know, we could do that to you, but we are going to charge you with the possession of an illegal or a dangerous drug because you self-determined and took care of what you needed to take care of for yourself, right? This is the world we're living in, y'all. Are y'all clear about the type of world that we're living in, right? So it's important, as I hear that in your meeting that you just had, that you were very intentional about including the term intersectionality, because we can no longer talk about what's happening in this world from a single issue lens. It is impossible to do this work in that way because no one lives a single issue life. No one does. So we can't talk about this in a single issue way. So what does that mean if I now have to move towards looking at things from a more intersectional perspective? What does that mean when I have to look at like the fullness of reproductive justice and how I then show up in that work, right? And that's what we've really been trying to also do at Sister Song, is work with our national allies and state-based regional allies as well about, and come to the table saying, you know what, it's time for us not just to be in the same rooms with each other or be on panels with each other or go to each other's conferences. It's about how are we working on the ground with each other, digging deep in our communities, really moving forward towards the change that we want to see happen in the world. Right? And so I don't know how many of you all, and this work started for us because in 2014 we had this opportunity to do a collective action where we created an open letter to our allies, we consider them allies, Planned Parenthood, right? Where we said, hey, we've been working with y'all for quite some time. I'm gonna need us to get better on how we interact with each other, right? It was said a whole lot more eloquently than that, I promise, right? But that letter, right, us kind of putting that to the forefront allowed us to dig deep with our national allies and to be able to build stronger relationships where women of color and women who are not of color, right, can actually be at the same table and be at the same table with intention with each other. Because that's the place that we're in, because if we don't do that, y'all, if we don't do that on the same plane, if we don't do that together collectively, right, we're never going to see that other side, right, where freedom and justice and liberation is possible for everyone. So I want to be able to dig in with some questions and stuff from you all, so I don't want to like speak out too much to you, and I want to definitely leave time for my dear sister up here to talk about her work, especially as it starts to look how arts and activism and all that plays into the media, because the media plays a really serious role in how we see what's going on in the world, right? And one of the last things I will say is that because we understand how important that is at Sister Song, we've been working with one of our newest projects, which is called Artists United for Reproductive Justice, where we are bringing women together to say, how do we start to create replicable models and tools where we are actually able to talk about the issues most important to us that's impacting our lives, and how do we start to see ourselves reflected, right? Because it's one thing to like have something about you. It's another thing to have that thing about you and you to see yourself in that thing, right? So how do we make ourselves visible in that, right? So that we can actually get to the other side. So I'm excited for questions, so I hope that you're writing them down, right? So we can really have a dialogue and discussion with each other versus just your ordinary panel, all right? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. As you note, the name of this plenary is Feminist Grassroots Organizing, Reproductive Justice, Media Representation, and Public Education. So next is Catherine Dent, actor, producer, and director, best known for her role as Danny Sofer in The Shield. Thank you so much.
So we're going to hope that the technical aspects of this go well. We'll figure it out. I think we got it. Hold on one second. That's okay. Yeah, I got. And then how do I do? Just press enter for the next slide. Okay, great. So thank you so much. It's really great to be here. I'm honored, Terry O'Neill. Thank you for having me. I'm especially excited to be here because I grew up in Louisiana. I grew up in Baton Rouge. Yeah. Just up the road a little ways, as we say. And so it's very exciting and a big honor for me. I'm going to actually do something that's really terrifying for an actress. I'm going to reveal my age. I know, most actresses will never do that. Well, actually, never mind. What I'll do is just sort of reveal my age range. That's how we do in Hollywood. Better yet, I'm just going to date myself. How's that? You'll be able to figure it out for yourselves. When I was a little girl growing up here in Louisiana, one of my absolute favorite TV shows was this. Let's see if this works. How do we? Yeah, once. Now, how many of you remember Policewoman? Yeah, all of you, I bet. I know. And for those of you who don't, for those of us who do remember it, I'm sure you remember it as probably being incredibly sexist, right? However, at the time, in the early 1970s, before Policewoman came out, women occupied only about 2% of all law enforcement officials. And after Policewoman aired, it was on the air for about 4 years, we saw a significant spike in applications to police academies by women. And subsequently, women came to occupy 12% of law enforcement officers. Now, that's an increase of 600%. We had 600% more female cops on the street after Policewoman aired. And if we jump 25 years to the year 2000, CSI was one of the top shows on television. And after CSI aired and its subsequent franchise shows, the world of forensic science broke wide open with women. It went from being a total boys' town to a girls' world, and forensic science became one of the fastest growing fields for women. Do you think there's any correlation between what girls see on television? Is there any correlation between the occupations that women have in film and television and what girls see as choices for themselves? Nowadays, Bones and NCIS are two of the top-rated shows. 60% of all forensic scientists are female. At the Gina Davis Institute, which I'm a member of, we have an expression, and we say, if she can see it, she can be it. If she can see it, she can be it. This is actually, I think this slide was taken at George Mason University. If you look very closely, there's only about 2 guys in the crowd. 75% of all forensic scientists are female. It's amazing, isn't it? And the research shows there is a direct correlation between the jobs that women occupy in film and television and what girls see as possible opportunities for themselves in their careers. At the Gina Davis Institute, last year they launched, I'm just a member, findings which they had amassed the largest body of research on gender representation in the entertainment industry. And the study was a wake-up call for all of us. We know that children watch about 35 hours a week of television, 35 hours. If you live in France, that's the legal number of hours you're allowed to work. And of those 35 hours, we know that boys and girls are seeing far too much of some things and not enough of another. And namely, the not enough of what they're seeing is female representation. In G and PG rated films, boys outnumber girls 3-to-1. In R-rated films, it's 5-to-1. But just when talking about children, boys outnumber girls 3-to-1, whether it's animated films or feature films. And when they are on screen, the girls don't get to say much. In this study, we looked at close to 6,000 speaking roles, 5,700 speaking roles over the past couple of years. 69.5% of all speaking roles are male. And most of the women in this room know when they are on screen, whether or not we get to say anything at all, females are 40% more likely to be dressed in alluring or sexually provocative attire. And that doesn't matter if you're a cop or a cartoon. By the way, in this study, young girls aged 13 to 39 are equally sexualized. 13 to 39, equal sexualization. Okay, so all of this sort of raises the question, doesn't it? What do these outnumbered, mute, hypersexualized females even get to do when they are on screen, right? Not much. When we looked at crowd scenes in a study of all films since 2010, females make up only 17% of the crowd. I know, this is a really weird number. But I promise you, after today, and I present these numbers and these images to you, you're going to go home and you're going to watch movies in a completely different way, and you're going to see females are making up only 17% of the crowd. And this number hasn't changed in 20 years. I know, it's sad, isn't it? Try doing what I do for a living. Look closely. The next time you're watching your favorite horror film or a zombie film, look closely at the images that are being presented. The next time you're watching cartoons with your kids over and over again, look closely at the images that they're being presented. And this summer, when you go to that big blockbuster film, pay attention to the crowd scenes. Women make up only 17% of the crowds. Now, this movie, I don't know if you recognize it. This is the James Bond movie that came out about 2 years ago. When I saw this film, I went ballistic. My poor husband will not even go to the movies with me anymore because I'm screaming at the scene. This scene, if any of you remember, took place in London on a subway at rush hour. Now, all I can figure is that maybe the women got home early that day and they're home making dinner for their husbands. What's that? They're still at work. Yeah, better yet, they're actually still working. Thank you. Go home and watch this movie and try not to throw bricks at the television screen. Yeah, well, it was hard to find screenshots and stuff, but trust me, it's all white males under 35 in London. I mean, for God's sakes, put a turban on somebody. So 17% of the crowd, and for me, one of the most disturbing numbers that came out of this Gina Davis study was that when we look at occupations, because I shared with you how girls really are affected by the work that they see other women doing in films and television. So when we look at actual occupations in film and television, 81% of all the occupations are held by males. 81% of all the jobs you see on film and in television and film are held by males. Whether you're watching your favorite TV show about technology, or whether it's about the financial sector, or whether we're watching a movie about sports heroes or superheroes, the girls don't have the jobs. So how does this affect the real world? What is it, the real world versus the real world? Is there any correlation? Remember, I gave you these numbers. 17% of the crowd, less than 20% of all occupations are held by women. Okay, let's look at the real world. Women make up 15% of all Fortune 500 boards. 17% of all cardiac surgeons in the United States are female. Congress is less than 20% female. And the Animators Guild, the people who are responsible for those cute, mute, hypersexualized little creatures, the Animators Guild is 17% female. It's fascinating, isn't it? And for years, we've been seeing, children watch television in a repetitive nature, and we go to the movies, and these are the things that we have seen over and over and over again. So it makes you wonder, is it because we haven't seen it so we don't know we can be it? Or is it because we've just become so used to these numbers we actually think it's normal? We sort of accepted it as the norm. Here's an interesting research thing, not out of the Gina Davis Institute, but something that I read recently. When males are shown pictures of a crowd where it comprised only 17% women, the men actually perceive that the crowd is equal 50-50 male-female. And when men are shown photographs of crowds where the crowds are comprised of 33% women, the men will tell you there's more women in the room than men. Fascinating, isn't it? And I want to share with you one more short sort of personal story that used to happen to me a lot in Hollywood, which I hope will illuminate to y'all what to pay attention to and what to look for. A couple of years ago, around the time I reached that sort of special age range, late 30s, early 40s, which is terrifying for an actress. God forbid you turn 40. And I would talk to people about this issue of the lack of grown-up women in films and television. And they would say to me again and again and again, they'd say, really? But TV's so great for women. TV's really great for women. I mean, look at Kira Sedgwick. What about that show, The Closer? TV's great for women, isn't it? Okay, let's look at The Closer. Let me show you a scene from The Closer. This is a spin-off of The Closer. This was a show that came after The Closer. We got an extra one. But see, I sort of have this theory. It's called what I call the one strong woman theory. And I know one woman can do the job of 5 men. However, I think that what happens is when we see this one strong woman image, we think the problem's been solved. We think, oh no, that's been taken care of. The problem's been solved. Has the problem been solved? So I want to leave you today with just a couple things to think about. I know that you're not a room of screenwriters and directors and producers, although I wish you were. I'd make a little bit more money this year. I just want to leave with you a couple of thoughts for when you do watch television or take your kids to the movies or go to the movies yourself. The first thing is become a savvy, take a look at those crowd scenes. Check in with the workforce. Is there parity? And if there's not, bitch about it. My husband is the legal director of the ACLU of Southern California, so he's about as liberal and progressive and, as they come. My husband for years didn't see it. We don't see it. And I'm sure a lot of you are surprised about these crowd scenes and these numbers. As women, as progressive people, you don't see it because these images have repeated over and over and over again. We have to open our eyes. We have to see what's being in front of us. So become a savvy viewer and bitch about it and tweet and link and post about it. And I just have a little side note here. When you do tweet or post, one of the most effective things you can do is actually put a sponsor's name with that tweet. So for example, you could do, at Kellogg's Rice Krispies, hashtag give this girl a job, CW cartoon, whatever it is. Put a sponsor's name. You would be surprised how much feedback you will get by linking up your bitch to a sponsor. And finally, vote with your pocketbook. Here's the thing I say over and over again when I talk to people about the industry. Go to female-centric or gender-neutral films the weekend they open. I know it can be a drag, we want to wait a couple of weeks, but you would be surprised at how much Hollywood really green lights and judges its content by these opening weekend box office receipts. You've all read about it and you've heard about it. I promise you, That's how they decide things. And finally, I just want to leave you with today. I know that I showed you that image of Angie Dickinson back in the 70s when I was a little girl. Well, I did not become a female law officer, but I did get to play one on TV.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
So thank you so much, Catherine. And now, Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, is sorry that she's unable to be with us, but we are very lucky to have Connie Cordovilla, a longtime now member, activist in Virginia, and also works for the AFT, here to substitute for Randy. So.
I feel like a poor substitute for a 5'2" woman who gets up on her tippy toes in energy. She's an out lesbian union president, and we love her dearly. Her flight got canceled to get out of here because of storms, and she has to be someplace internationally tomorrow. So she called me up and asked me if I would deliver her remarks for her, and I said, anything for you, boss. You send the paycheck. So Randy's a leader of a 1.6 million member union that includes educators, nurses, public service workers, most of whom are women. Between 70 and 80% of our members are women, okay? And the work that NOW does on the behalf of women every day is critical to making sure that our members' rights are enshrined. So we want to thank you for that. And especially for fighting against voting restrictions. That's been a major task of ours that are aimed at community of colors, or ensuring that schools or universities are complying with Title IX to combat violence against women in college campuses, or to fight for equal pay. Those are all the battles that we take up with you. These issues are our issues. I want to talk to you today about our fight to reclaim the promise of public education. As you know, education, right, it provides a crucial path to empowerment for so many women and girls. In fact, worldwide, 31 million girls of primary school age are not enrolled in school. There are twice as many girls not attending school as boys, and twice as many illiterate women as men. Girls with little or no education are far more likely to be married as children, suffer domestic violence, live in poverty, and lack a say over household spending or even their own health care. Malala Yousafzai, who is a person we have taken up as sort of a guide and mascot for our union, has been such an important voice in this fight. She's done for girls' education across the world what Martin Luther King did for civil rights by speaking out for what's right, what's needed to make sure that all girls have the same opportunities as boys. And I'm sure, as Malala would tell you, we still have our work cut out for us, because even here in the United States, where the majority of higher education students are women, we need to ensure that women are better represented in the science, technology, engineering, and math fields, just as we need them better represented in the film world, because in fact, women now hold a disproportionately low number of STEM undergraduate degrees and are actually less than 25% of the STEM jobs in America. I think it's wonderful that we have that many people in forensic science, but that's become like sort of a buttonhole for women. They need to be able to reach out. Women need to understand, every girl needs to understand that she can grow up to be whatever she wants to be, whether it's an engineer, a doctor, a carpenter, an electrician, or even the president. And we have to give her the tools to get there. And that's one reason why we're supporting high-quality career and technical education programs around the country, known as CTE. We recently announced that AFT's Innovation Fund will be funding efforts in 4 cities to create and expand CTE programs that will encourage girls to enter into those highly marketable and highly rewarding salary-wise fields when they get out. We also know that education is a key feminist issue and a key part of reclaiming the American dream. The question is, how do we get to a place where every child has access to high-quality public education? We begin by understanding and confronting the issues that face the children in our families today: poverty, wage stagnation, income inequality, and lack of opportunity. There's something wrong when half the kids in our public schools here in America are poor. When coming to school every day so hungry or waiting for those 2 meals they get at school because those are the only 2 meals they're going to get today is so important to them. And they're exhausted or worried because they can't, and they're exhausted and worried they can't focus on learning when you're worrying about how hungry your tummy is. So we need to create real opportunities for kids, families, and communities. They have to be of top priority, our communities, as well as rebuilding the middle class. And to get there, we must build a strong, vital public education system that provides multiple pathways to success in our 21st century economy. It isn't going to be just one path. It has to be many, because all of our children are different, and they learn different ways, and they're going to do different things. We must shift away from our current obsession for high-stakes testing to focus on the whole child. To help children learn how to build relationships and work in teams, to think critically and problem solve, to be resilient and creative, and build self-esteem and confidence to become the people that they can be. That's what education should be about, not rote learning. And we must listen to teachers, school support staff, and others who see every day what it is our kids need. But we also have to understand that the fight for public education isn't just about the students who are relying on us to give them the chance to climb the ladder of opportunity. And it's not just about the parents who want nothing more than a safe, welcoming neighborhood school for their children. It's even not just about dedicated educators that wake up every morning with the future of their students at the front of their mind. And they deserve the respect and dignity and support that they need on their jobs. It's really about our communities, where we live. Public schools are the center of those communities. It's about the future of our nation. Public schools prepare future generations for college, career, and life. Public education is an anchor of democracy. It's a propeller of our economy and the vehicle through which we help children achieve their dreams. So today, the promise of public education is very much under attack. The same people that are attacking a woman's rights to make decisions about her body and her health, or who are attacking worker rights to have a voice on the job and collectively bargain, those same people are trying to destroy public education by creating a system of winners and losers, instead of giving every child access to the same opportunities for a great public education. And now I'm going to ask a question, and this is one of my favorite parts, about a certain person in Wisconsin, and I'd like to hear your answer loud and strong. So here we go. Are we going to let Scott Walker get away with his litany of lies about women, about workers, about public services? What do you say? No, that's right. Well, unfortunately, Scott Walker isn't alone. He's propped up by the billionaire, we call them the Koch brothers at AFT, but other people call them the Koch brothers, and his donors on Wall Street, who in turn are propping up a lot of other little public. Anybody here never heard of ALEC? The American Legislative Exchange Council? And now, right, and then you got ACES, the American Council, American City. They have spawned a city thing now so that they can make that legislation now become city legislation, because it's not succeeding well enough, they feel, at the state level. So, but fortunately, we're not alone, because we're all in this fight together. And together, we have to reach out to our communities and help people understand that our power comes from standing together. AFT and many of our locals are building organic relationships in the community. In fact, we have 5 community coordinators across the country in our various regions who are reaching out to communities to build real relationships that are mutual relationships. It isn't just one-sided. We don't want to buy a space in your program or a ticket to your dinner. We want to get out there and walk the lines with you. We want you to know that we are behind you. We are a pro-choice union. We also want you to join. I want you to join this effort by telling your friends and neighbors, coworkers, and the people standing next to you in supermarket lines that we're fighting for an America where all the children have a chance to dream their dreams and actually achieve them. The promise of America with a good education and a level playing field is that you can do almost anything. We are reclaiming that promise so that every child has a chance, and we are reclaiming that promise for our kids and for our country. And it's up to us to reclaim it and to ensure that every school is one where teachers want to teach, Parents want to send their kids, and the kids are engaged in learning. So whether you're in my home state in Virginia or in Ohio or Florida or California or Texas, we need each and every one of you to stand up and fight with us to reclaim public education.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the inspiring words, Catherine and Monica and Connie. Thank you so much for being here and getting us going for other ways that we can organize to help make things better for women. You will now have, it's 5 to 5. You get at 10 minutes after 5, come back here. You get a little break, and then come back here for more fun with bylaws. So